shut down her computer in the laboratory. The research building, once filled with scientists and students, was now almost empty. Only the distant sound of equipment and the hum of air conditioning broke the silence. She massaged her temples, feeling the migraine forming after hours analyzing data that, honestly, no longer made sense to her. "Still here, Dr. Miller?" asked Carl, the night security guard, seeing her leave. "Yes, Carl, the work never seems to end." But it would. Jessica had already made her decision. After 10 years dedicated to molecular biology research in Chicago, she felt a growing emptiness. What was once passion had transformed into an exhausting routine. The conferences, articles, and professional recognition no longer filled the hole she felt inside. The next morning, Jessica entered the office of the research center's director. Resigning? Leonard looked at her over his glasses. "You're one of our most brilliant researchers, Jessica. Are you sure about this?" "I am, Leonard. I need a break, going back to my roots." "And where are you going?" "Pine Ridge, back to my grandmother's house." The director tried to dissuade her with promises of promotion and salary increases, but Jessica had already decided. 3 days later, her apartment was empty, her belongings packed in the car. She took one last look at Chicago's concrete horizon before starting the engine and heading toward the Blue Ridge Mountains. The road wound through the mountains, and as she climbed, the air changed. Chicago was left behind, with its smell of pollution and haste. Now the aroma of damp earth and vegetation invaded her nostrils. Memories began to surface. Walks with her grandmother through the forest, herbal tea harvested from the yard, stories about the family's connection to nature. "Nonsense," Jessica muttered to herself, trying to push away what she considered superstitions of an elderly mind. She was a scientist. She believed in facts, in verifiable data. Her grandmother's stories about forest guardians and the heart of the mountains were just that, stories. Or at least that's what she tried to convince herself. The orange sky announced dusk when her car began to fail. The engine coughed a few times and, despite her attempts, simply stopped. "Great! Perfect!" she grumbled, hitting the steering wheel. Jessica got out of the vehicle and checked her cell phone. No signal. She was alone on the road, surrounded by dense Appalachian forest. The silence was broken by the sound of an approaching engine. A black pickup truck appeared around the bend, its high beams momentarily blinding Jessica. The vehicle stopped, and 3 men got out. The tallest of them, wearing an impeccable suit despite the heat, approached with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Car trouble, miss?" "Yes, it just stopped." "What a coincidence finding you here, Miss Miller," the man spoke, his tone casual, but something in his voice made Jessica shudder. "How do you know my name?" Pine Ridge is a small town. News travels fast, especially when it concerns Eleanor Miller's granddaughter. "I'm Richard Morgan, from New Era Enterprises." The company. Name triggered an alarm in Jessica's memory. Her grandmother had mentioned it in her recent calls, talking about a company that was buying lands in the region, pressuring local residents. "If you'd like, we can take you to town," offered Richard, his smile widening, but his eyes remained as cold as steel. Before Jessica could respond, the sound of hooves against asphalt reverberated down the road. A majestic black horse emerged from the forest, its coat gleaming under the evening sky. The animal positioned itself between Jessica and the men, its deep eyes fixed on the strangers. The men backed away, visibly disturbed by the animal's presence. "Seems you have other friends around here," said Richard, his voice now tense. "We'll see you soon, Miss Miller." The 3 men returned to the truck and departed, leaving Jessica alone with the mysterious horse, which stared at her as if it could see into her soul. The horse stared at Jessica with disconcerting intensity. It didn't seem like an ordinary animal. There was something almost human in its gaze. After a few moments of hesitation, the animal slowly turned and began walking toward the forest, occasionally stopping, as if waiting for her to follow. "This is absurd," Jessica muttered to herself. However, something compelled her to follow the animal. Perhaps it was the strange sense of familiarity, or perhaps the need to get away from the road after the unsettling encounter with the New Era men. Taking a deep breath, Jessica left her car behind and followed the horse. The trail narrowed as they entered the forest. The air became denser, laden with the scent of damp earth and vegetation. The sun almost disappeared below the horizon, cast golden beams through the foliage, creating an almost magical atmosphere. Jessica felt her breathing quicken, not from physical exertion but from an inexplicable inner agitation. After walking for approximately 20 minutes, they reached a perfectly circular clearing. In the Einbigsche center stood a tree unlike any Jessica had ever seen. Its trunk was wide and twisted, the bark blending shades of brown and gold that seemed to pulse under the twilight. Its roots emerged and submerged from the soil, as if dancing a millennial choreography, and its crown opened into a canopy of emerald green leaves that seemed to touch the sky. The horse stopped near the tree, looking from Jessica to the imposing plant as if wanting her to understand something fundamental. "What is this?" whispered Jessica, more to herself than to the animal. As she approached the tree, she felt a gentle vibration emanating from the trunk. Hesitantly, she extended her hand to touch it. The moment her fingers made contact with the bark, an electric current seemed to course through her body. Quick, fragmented visions invaded her mind. Her grandmother, younger, in the same clearing. Devastated forest. A group of people united around the tree. Night rides, and Richard Morgan smiling over signed documents. Jessica backed away, startled. Her heart was beating erratically, and her breathing was irregular. What had just happened? As a scientist, she immediately sought a rational explanation. Exhaustion, stress, perhaps even hallucination, induced by some substance released by the tree. But deep down, she knew it was something more. The horse whinnied softly, as if encouraging her. Jessica hesitated, but then something inside her calmed. It was as if a forgotten part of her being was awakening, recognizing that place, that energy. "What do you want to show me?" she asked, approaching the tree again. This time, when she touched the trunk, the sensation was different. A profound calm enveloped her, and she felt as if the tree was communicating with her in a language without words, made of sensations and impressions. She now understood that this tree was special, a nexus of vital energy that nourished the entire region. Noise behind her broke the enchantment of the moment. The horse had disappeared, and Jessica was no longer alone in the clearing. A familiar figure was walking toward her. "You arrived earlier than I expected," said Grandma Eleanor, with a serene smile, as if finding her granddaughter in an isolated clearing at dusk was the most natural thing in the world. "Grandma, how did you know I would be here?" Grandma Eleanor approached, her eyes reflecting the same intensity that Jessica had seen in the horse's gaze. "He brought you here." "The Guardian. That means it's time." "Time for what? How did you know about the horse?" Jessica felt confused, torn between scientific skepticism and the undeniable strangeness of the events. "Come home with me, child. There's much to discuss. The night isn't safe for us now." The way back seemed shorter. Grandma Eleanor knew the forest like the back of her hand, guiding them through almost invisible trails until they reached a secondary road where an old jeep awaited them. In a few minutes they were on the main road. "Your car will be retrieved tomorrow," said Grandma Eleanor, as if she had foreseen everything. "We need to get home before they do." "Before who, Grandma?" "Those you've already met, the New Era men." Jessica felt a shiver run down her spine. The feeling that she had fallen into a completely different world, where the rules she knew didn't apply, intensified with each moment. Grandma Eleanor's house appeared around the bend, a well-preserved colonial building with white walls and blue windows, surrounded by a lush garden that seemed more like a continuation of the forest. As they got out of the jeep, Jessica noticed a black pickup truck parked a few meters away, watching. "They're watching us," she noted. "They're watching the land, child, and now watching you, too." Grandma Eleanor held Jessica's hand with surprising firmness for someone her age. "It's time for you to know your heritage, Jessica. It's time for you to understand who you really are." Grandma Eleanor's kitchen was a sanctuary of aromas and memories. Dried herbs hung from the ceiling in small bunches, Jars with various preparations lined the shelves, and the wood stove warmed the environment with its comforting heat. Jessica watched her grandmother move with ease, preparing a tea that perfumed the air with essence of chamomile, mint, and something else she couldn't identify. "Drink," said Grandma Eleanor, placing a steaming cup before her granddaughter. "This will help clear your mind for what I need to tell you." Jessica hesitated for a moment, her scientific instinct raising alarms about unknown substances, but then remembered the countless teas she had drunk in that same kitchen during her childhood. She took a sip and felt the hot liquid flow down her throat, spreading a sensation of calm and mental clarity. "What's happening, Grandma? Who are those men? What was that tree? And the horse?" Grandma Eleanor sighed deeply, her eyes fixed on some point beyond the kitchen, walls as if contemplating distant times and events. "Our family isn't ordinary, Jessica. For centuries, the Millers have been guardians of the mountains, protectors of what we call the heart of the forest. That tree you saw, the heart, is the vital nexus that sustains the balance of this entire region. It's not just a tree, it's a conscious living being, a portal between worlds." Jessica swallowed hard. In any other circumstance, she would have dismissed such words as delusions of an elderly mind. But after what she had experienced in the clearing, she couldn't deny that something extraordinary was happening. "And the horse?" "He is one of the guardians, a protective spirit that assumes physical form when necessary. There are others, but he chose you, Jessica, just as he chose me and my mother before me." "Chose me for what?" "To be the next guardian. When a guardian ages, the spirit seeks the next family member with potential to assume the role. I always knew it would be you, since you were a child and plants responded to your touch, since birds gathered around the house when you sang." Jessica shook her head, trying to process it all. She remembered these events, but had always attributed them to childish imagination or coincidences. Why me? Why now? Grandma Eleanor slowly rose and walked to an old carved wooden chest that occupied a corner of the room. From it, she retrieved a book with a leather cover worn by time, gilded on the edges. Opening it, Jessica saw pages filled with elegant calligraphy, interspersed with detailed drawings of plants, maps, and mysterious symbols. The Grimoire of the Mountains, passed from guardian to guardian. Here is everything we need to know about our mission, about the connection with the land, about the guardian spirits. And now the moment is critical, perhaps the most dangerous in generations. Because of New Era. Yes, they're not just a real estate company, Jessica. They're much more. For decades, a select group of people has been seeking the power of the heart of the forest. They've tried to find it before, without success. But now, with advanced technologies, they're closer than ever. Grandma Eleanor turned some pages of the grimoire until she reached an illustration showing the tree that Jessica had found, surrounded by precise geometric symbols. The heart emits a subtle energy, impossible to detect with common instruments, but New Era has developed technology capable of sensing these emanations. They're buying lands strategically, surrounding the forest, approaching the center. If they find the heart, if they manage to control its energy, the consequences would be catastrophic. What kind of consequences? Total imbalance, droughts, storms, the land slowly dying. And not just here, Jessica. The heart of the forest isn't just a local nexus, it's part of a global network of sacred points that maintain the balance of the entire planet. The scientist in Jessica wanted to protest, demand evidence, studies, data, but the part of her that had felt the tree's energy flow through her body knew her grandmother was speaking the truth. And what can I do? I'm just a biologist. I know nothing about being a guardian. Grandma Eleanor smiled tenderly, taking her granddaughter's hands in hers. You already know more than you imagine. Your scientific training isn't an obstacle, Jessica. It's an advantage. Guardians have always used the knowledge available in their times. Our ancestors used herbs and chants. You can use modern science to protect the forest. The sound of an approaching engine interrupted the conversation. Grandma Eleanor rose quickly, her face expressing alarm. They're here. Jessica ran to the window. The same black pickup truck she had seen before was now parking in front of the house. Richard Morgan and his two companions descended from the vehicle. What do they want? You, Jessica, they want you. Me? Why? Grandma Eleanor closed the grimoire with a quick movement and returned it to the chest. Because you saw the heart. Because the Guardian chose you. And because you, with your scientific knowledge and your natural connection to the Earth, represent the greatest threat to their plans. A firm knock on the door announced the arrival of the unwanted visitors. Grandma Eleanor adjusted her grey hair and straightened her posture. Don't show fear, Jessica. Remember, you're a Miller. The blood of the Guardians flows in your veins. Grandma Eleanor opened the door with the tranquility of someone receiving old friends for afternoon tea. Her smile didn't reach her eyes, which remained vigilant and suspicious. Mr. Morgan, what a surprise to receive you at this hour, she said, partially blocking the entrance with her small but firm body. Richard Morgan smiled, displaying perfectly aligned teeth. He wore an impeccable dark suit, despite the heat, and his eyes scanned the environment over Grandma Eleanor's shoulders, until they found Jessica. Mrs. Miller, I apologize for the late visit. We saw your granddaughter on the road earlier and became concerned. Her car seemed to be having problems. Very kind of you, but as you can see, she arrived safely. Jessica approached, positioning herself beside her grandmother. She observed the two men accompanying Richard, one burly, with a rough appearance, and the other younger, carrying a metallic briefcase and avoiding eye contact. Miss Miller, what? A pleasure to meet you formally. Richard extended his hand, which Jessica briefly shook. Your reputation as a scientist precedes you. I didn't know real estate businessmen followed scientific publications, Jessica responded, maintaining a casual tone but alert. Richard laughed, as if she had told a brilliant joke. New Era isn't a simple real estate company, miss. We're a conglomerate with diversified interests. Scientific research is one of them, especially in areas like yours, molecular biology, environmental conservation. Curious considering how many hectares of native forest you plan to cut down for your developments, Jessica couldn't contain the acidity in her voice. Richard's smile faltered for an instant, but quickly recovered. I believe there's been some misunderstanding. New Era is committed to sustainable development. In fact, we're here to make a proposal that might interest both you and your grandmother. Grandma Eleanor crossed her arms. And what would that proposal be, Mr. Morgan? May we come in to discuss? It's a matter that requires privacy. After a moment of hesitation, Grandma Eleanor stepped aside, allowing the visitors to enter. Jessica noticed that her grandmother positioned herself strategically between the men and the chest containing the grimoire. In the modest living room, Richard occupied the main sofa without being invited, while his assistants remained standing. The man with the briefcase placed it on the floor beside him, keeping his hand protectively over it. As I was saying, New Era has great interest in environmental preservation, began Richard, his tone smooth as velvet. We're developing a private, ecological reserve project that would encompass a large part of the mountains. Private reserve? Questioned Jessica. For what exactly? Research, conservation, controlled ecotourism. I imagine that as a biologist, you appreciate the importance of protecting areas like this. Certainly, but usually companies like yours build condominiums and resorts, not ecological reserves. Richard smiled again, leaning forward. As I said, New Era isn't an ordinary company. We have special interest in the unique properties of this region, particularly in certain bioenergetic phenomena that our researchers have detected. Jessica felt a chill down her spine. He was talking about the heart of the forest, even if not directly. I don't understand, she said, feigning ignorance. Allow me to demonstrate. Paul? Richard made a gesture to the man with the briefcase, who promptly opened it. From inside, he removed a device that looked like a tablet, but with additional components, sensors connected to small antennas and a display, showing colorful undulations in real time. This is an advanced bioenergetic field detector, explained Richard, developed by our laboratories. It's capable of capturing energy emanations imperceptible to conventional equipment. He activated the device, which immediately began to emit a low hum. The undulations on the screen intensified, and a numerical reading in the upper corner began to rise rapidly. Fascinating, isn't it? This region emits a completely unique energy pattern, and the epicenter of these emanations is near here. Grandma Eleanor and Jessica exchanged brief but significant glances. "And what do you intend to do with this energy?" asked Grandma Eleanor, her voice calm but tense. "Study it, primarily. Then, potentially, use it for beneficial purposes. Clean, energy generation, medical applications, perhaps even accelerated environmental restoration." "Sounds too good to be true," commented Jessica. "That's why we'd like to hire you, Ms. Miller," Richard said, surprising her. "Your expertise would be invaluable to our project. We offer a salary 3 times higher than what you received in Chicago, cutting-edge laboratory, support team, freedom to conduct your own research in parallel." Jessica blinked, astonished. The offer was tempting, absurdly tempting. Part of her, the ambitious scientist who always sought more resources for her research, almost allowed herself to be seduced by the proposal. "And what about my grandmother?" she asked, buying time to think. "Mrs. Miller would be richly compensated for access to her property. Additionally, we offer relocation to a comfortable residence in town with all amenities." "Take me from my land." Grandma Eleanor's voice became sharp. "This house has belonged to the Millers for generations." Richard made a conciliatory gesture. "Just a suggestion, ma'am. Naturally, the decision is yours. But consider, your granddaughter working on a revolutionary project, your own financial security guaranteed, the area preserved under scientific supervision." He removed 2 envelopes from the inside pocket of his jacket. "Here are the details of our proposal for both of you. I suggest you read them carefully, talk among yourselves. I'll return in 3 days to hear your answer." He stood, adjusting his suit with an elegant movement. "Oh, and Ms. Miller," he added, already heading to the door, "if by chance you find something unusual in your walks through the forest, we would be very interested to know." As soon as the door closed behind Richard Morgan and his assistants, Grandma Eleanor hurried to the window, watching through the lace curtain until the black pickup truck disappeared around the bend in the road. "They know," she murmured, turning to Jessica. "They know more than they're revealing." Jessica held the 2 envelopes, feeling their weight as if they were made of lead rather than paper. "Grandma, what do they really want? It can't just be scientific research." Grandma Eleanor returned to the chest, retrieving the grimoire again. This time she leafed through to almost the end of the book, where yellowed pages showed detailed illustrations of rituals and ceremonies. "The heart of the forest isn't just a source of energy, Jessica. It's a nexus, a point of contact between dimensions. The ancients called it the threshold. In the right hands, like those of the guardians, it serves to maintain balance, to heal, to nourish the land. In the wrong hands," she pointed to an illustration showing hooded figures around the tree, while dark clouds formed above and the land around seemed to wither. "It can be a source of unlimited power, but at the expense of the earth itself. New Era doesn't want to preserve, they want to exploit, drain, control." Jessica sat down, feeling the weight of the revelations. In a few hours, her world had been turned upside down. From skeptical scientist to potential guardian of a mystical nexus, threatened by a corporation with advanced technology and obscure intentions. Why now? Why didn't you tell me all this before? Grandma Eleanor's gaze softened. Each guardian must find their own path to the heart. It cannot be forced, cannot be taught like a school lesson. It's an awakening that comes from within. I tried to prepare you in childhood with stories, with walks through the forest, teaching you to listen to the earth. But you chose science, the path of reason. And now I have to choose between science and this? Jessica gestured toward the grimoire. No, dear. Now you need to find a way to unite the 2 worlds. Science isn't the enemy of ancestral wisdom. It can be its most powerful ally. Grandma Eleanor closed the book and sat beside her granddaughter, taking her hands in hers. But first we need to strengthen your connection. You touched the heart, but you haven't fully awakened to its call. Jessica hesitated, her scientific mind still struggling to accept it all. How? Tonight, at the hour when the moon touches the mountain top. We need to perform the awakening ritual. The following hours passed in preparations. Grandma Eleanor collected specific herbs from the garden, prepared infusions, separated crystals and stones that Jessica recognized from her childhood. The scientist observed everything with a mixture of skepticism and growing fascination, noting how her grandmother worked with methodical precision that would rival any laboratory protocol. At nightfall, they headed to the clearing. Jessica carried a bag with the items prepared by Grandma Eleanor, while her grandmother carried a small oil lamp. The path through the dark forest should have been frightening, but Jessica felt strangely comfortable, as if each tree, each bush, recognized her and greeted her. Upon reaching the clearing, the full moon bathed the place with its silver light. The heart of the forest seemed even more majestic, its leaves glittering like emeralds under the moonlight. Grandma Eleanor arranged the items they had brought at specific points around the tree, forming a geometric pattern that Jessica recognized from her studies of sacred geometry, a topic she had briefly explored but dismissed as pseudoscience. Now, Jessica, I need you to position yourself before the heart and open your mind. No resistance, no skepticism, just feel. Jessica obeyed, placing herself before the imposing tree. Grandma Eleanor began to intone a low, melodic chant in a language Jessica didn't recognize, but which sounded strangely familiar, as if it were part of very ancient memories buried in her subconscious. The air around seemed to thicken, charged with energy. The tree's leaves began to tremble, despite the absence of wind. Jessica felt a growing pressure in her chest, not painful but intense. It was as if something were trying to awaken within her. "Let it flow, Jessica," Grandma Eleanor's voice now sounded distant. "Don't fight it. Accept what has always been yours by right." Jessica closed her eyes and, for the first time in years, allowed herself to simply feel without analyzing, without questioning. The sensation grew, expanding throughout her body. And then, like a dam breaking, the energy flowed freely. She felt connected to everything, each leaf, each insect, each particle of air. She could feel the sap running through the heart's trunk, could perceive the roots extending deeply into the soil, intertwining with those of other trees, forming a vast living network beneath her feet. When she opened her eyes, the world seemed different. More vibrant colors, sharper sounds, and mainly an expanded awareness of everything around her. It wasn't just Jessica Miller there. She was part of something much larger, ancient, and new at the same time. "I can feel it," she whispered. Amazed. "I can feel everything." Grandma Eleanor's smile was radiant. "Welcome, Guardian." A familiar whinny echoed through the clearing. The majestic black horse that Jessica had met before emerged from the forest, approaching with deliberate steps. His eyes, now Jessica could clearly see, shone with an inner light, intelligent and ancient. "He is called Windrunner," explained Grandma Eleanor. "He has served the Millers for generations. Now he serves you." The horse inclined its head as, Pfiff in reverence, and Jessica, moved by an instinct she didn't know she possessed, extended her hand to touch its mane. At the moment of contact, another wave of energy coursed through her body, sealing a silent pact between guardian and protector. A snap of a breaking branch cut through the night's silence. Windrunner raised his head, alert, and Jessica immediately realized they weren't alone. "Don't move," whispered Grandma Eleanor, her body tense as a violin string. Windrunner positioned himself protectively in front of the two women, his hooves beating softly on the ground as if preparing to act. Jessica, with her newly awakened senses, perceived not just sounds but presences. There were at least 3 people hidden among the trees surrounding the clearing. "New era," she murmured to her grandmother. Grandma Eleanor nodded almost imperceptibly. "Collect the crystals, quickly." As Jessica began gathering the ritual items, a familiar voice cut through the silence. "A fascinating scene." Richard Morgan emerged from the darkness, followed by his 2 assistants. One of them carried the same electronic device they had shown earlier, now flashing furiously with red lights. The other held something that looked like a weapon, but unlike anything Jessica had ever seen, more like a compact light cannon. "Initiation ritual, I suppose," continued Richard, his tone casual but his eyes shining with a predatory intensity. A pity we interrupted, but we couldn't miss this opportunity. Windrunner whinnied threateningly, advancing a step. The man with the weapon pointed it at the animal. "I wouldn't do that if I were you," warned Richard. "This weapon emits concentrated electromagnetic pulses, efficient against electronic systems and, curiously, against manifestations of bioetheric energy, like your equine friend there." Jessica positioned herself between the weapon and Windrunner, surprising herself with her own courage. "What do you want, Morgan?" "What I've always wanted, Dr. Miller, the heart of the forest." His gaze shifted to the imposing tree behind them. "Or to be more precise, the power it contains. I've spent years looking for it. Decades of research, technology developed exclusively for this purpose, negotiations with local authorities, strategic land purchases, and now, finally, I stand before it." "For what?" asked Grandma Eleanor, her voice firm despite the threat. "What do you think you can do with it?" Richard's smile widened, revealing something almost hungry in his expression. "Energy revolution, Mrs. Miller. Imagine a clean, inexhaustible energy source that doesn't depend on fossil fuels, nuclear energy, or even the sun and wind. A source capable of powering entire cities at a fraction of the current cost. New Era wouldn't just be the company name, it would be the beginning of a new era for humanity. At the cost of natural balance," Jessica countered. "This nexus doesn't exist to be exploited. It's a pillar of support, a vital part of a complex system that maintains the balance of the entire region. Extracting its energy would mean progress. Always requires sacrifices, Dr. Miller. Some trees, some acres, of forest, perhaps some species. Small prices to pay for humanity's advancement." Jessica felt nausea at the speech. The man truly believed what he was saying, which made him even more dangerous. "And if I refuse to cooperate?" Richard shrugged. "With studied elegance. I would prefer to have you on board with your knowledge and your obvious connection." He gestured to the ritual scene. "But you're not indispensable. Our scientists have been working on this for years. Eventually we'll discover how to access and extract the energy without your help." He made a gesture to the man with the reading device. "Paul, you can begin the initial mapping." The assistant advanced a step, but Windrunner whinnied violently, rising on his hind legs in a threatening posture. The man with the weapon aimed, but before he could fire, the ground beneath his feet trembled. Roots emerged from the earth like living serpents, coiling around his legs, making him drop the weapon. Jessica looked at Grandma Eleanor, who kept her eyes closed, her lips moving in a silent chant. The roots continued to grow, now reaching Paul and Richard himself, who tried to back away, panic on his usually composed face. "What is this? Stop immediately." "It's not us," said Jessica, amazed. "It's the heart itself. It's defending itself." The armed man managed to reach his fallen equipment and, with a desperate movement, aimed it at the tree and fired. A pulse of bluish light cut through the air, hitting the heart's trunk. An anguished sound, like a voiceless scream, reverberated through the clearing. The roots retreated, and Jessica felt a sharp pain in her own chest, as if she herself had been hit. "No," she cried, running to the tree. Upon touching the trunk, she perceived real damage, a wound in the bark from which golden sap flowed. The wound seemed to pulse with its own light, weakening with each moment. "Grandma, it's hurt." Grandma Eleanor quickly joined her, her wrinkled fingers examining the damage with the expertise of someone who knew exactly what to look for. "We need to stabilize it, now." Meanwhile, Richard and his men had freed themselves from the roots and were backing away, the armed man preparing for another shot. "Enough!" Grandma Eleanor's voice resonated through the clearing with surprising authority for someone so small and elderly. "If you wound the heart again, you'll destroy what you so desire. The tree will die, taking with it all the power you covet." Richard hesitated, clearly calculating his options. "How can I believe you?" Grandma Eleanor pointed to the reading device in Paul's hands. "See for yourself. The readings are decreasing, aren't they? The damage you've caused is destabilizing the nexus. Continue and everything you seek will be lost." Paul consulted the device, his face paling. "She's right, sir. The readings have fallen to less than half." Richard gritted his teeth, visibly frustrated. "This doesn't end here. I'll return, and not just with equipment, but with a court order for expropriation of this land. You have until tomorrow to reconsider my offer." With a brusque gesture, he ordered his men to follow him, disappearing into the darkness of the forest. As soon as they were gone, Jessica turned her attention to the wounded heart. Under Grandma. Eleanor's guidance, she pressed her hands against the wound, feeling the energy flow from her body to the tree. It was an indescribable sensation, as if she were donating a part of herself. Slowly, the golden sap changed consistency, solidifying to close the damage. "Did it work?" she asked, exhausted. Grandma Eleanor nodded gravely. "For now. But the attack weakened the heart, and Richard won't give up easily." Windrunner approached, his muzzle gently touching Jessica's shoulder in an almost human gesture of comfort. "What do we do now?" she asked, caressing the animal's neck. Grandma Eleanor looked at the starry sky, where the full moon shone like a silver sentinel. "Now, we prepare for war." The next morning, Grandma Eleanor's kitchen had transformed into an improvised command center. The grimoire was open on the rustic table, surrounded by notebooks, laptop, and scientific equipment that Jessica had brought from Chicago, but hadn't unpacked yet. "We have to join forces," explained Jessica, typing furiously on her notebook. "Your ancestral knowledge with my scientific knowledge." Grandma Eleanor smiled, satisfied with her granddaughter's determination. "Exactly what the Guardians have done throughout generations, adapting to the times." Jessica was now analyzing samples of the heart's sap that they had collected before leaving the clearing the previous night. Under the portable microscope, the golden substance revealed cellular structures like she had never seen before. Complex, almost crystalline, pulsing with their own energy. "This is extraordinary. It doesn't resemble anything known to science." At the same time, she studied the grimoire, absorbing centuries of traditional knowledge about the heart of the forest and its role in natural balance. The combination of both perspectives began to form a coherent picture in her mind. "The weapon they used," Jessica reflected aloud, "emits concentrated electromagnetic pulses that interfere with the heart's bioenergetic field. It's like a short circuit in its vital energy network. Our ancestors called this separation," commented Grandma Eleanor, pointing to an illustration in the grimoire that showed the tree surrounded by angular symbols. "When the heart is separated from its own essence, it weakens." Jessica nodded, drawing parallels between the mystical language of the grimoire and the scientific concepts she mastered. "We need to find a way to protect the heart against this type of attack." "In the past," explained Grandma Eleanor, "the Guardians used quartz crystals arranged in specific patterns to create protection fields around the clearing." "An energy shield," Jessica murmured, her scientific mind translating the concept. The crystals could act as amplifiers and redistributors of the heart's own field, creating a kind of resonant frequency that would nullify the pulses from their weapon. The sound of tires on gravel interrupted her line of thought. Through the window, they saw a pickup truck different from Richard's, simpler and worn from use, parking in front of the house. "It's Michael," said Grandma Eleanor, visibly relieved. Middle-aged man with striking Native American features and hands calloused by manual labor descended from the vehicle. He carried a wooden box and moved with the confidence of someone who knew the place well. "Michael Thunder," explained Grandma Eleanor upon noticing her granddaughter's questioning look. "Descendant of the original Cherokee of this region. His family and ours have shared guardianship of the heart for generations." Michael entered without ceremony, placing the box on the table. "I brought what you asked for, Mrs. Miller. The crystals from the North Cave, the oldest ones." His gaze fixed on Jessica, studying her intensely. "So you're the new guardian. I recognized your energy even before seeing you." Jessica extended her hand, which Michael firmly shook. "Michael and other community members form a protection circle," explained Grandma Eleanor. "They are allies who know the heart's secret and help keep it safe." "We have more people coming," informed Michael. Tribal elders, herb knowers, even some young people who recently awakened to the call. Jessica felt a wave of relief. They weren't alone in this fight. "What can we expect from New Era?" she asked Michael. The man frowned. "Morgan has powerful connections, corrupt politicians, influential businessmen, even renowned scientists, and he's been filing legal proceedings to contest the ownership of this land." Grandma Eleanor opened a drawer and retrieved a folder with old documents. "These lands have belonged to the Millers for more than 200 years, with impeccable legal documentation," she stated, extending the papers to Jessica. "But Morgan has been trying to argue that parts of the property were never properly demarcated." "And there's more," continued Michael. "They're not just interested in the heart. They've discovered that the groundwater in this region has special properties. Preliminary analyses showed elevated levels of rare minerals and unique organic compounds, water that passes through the heart's roots." Jessica returned to the microscope, analyzing the golden sap again. "That would explain the commercial interest. If they manage to isolate these components—" "Exactly," confirmed Michael. "Pharmaceutical companies would pay fortunes." The plan was beginning to make sense to Jessica. It wasn't just energy. It was exploitation on multiple fronts: real estate, energy, pharmaceutical. A billion-dollar project disguised as a conservation initiative. The morning advanced in preparations. More community members arrived, bringing knowledge and resources. Grandma Eleanor coordinated the group with the natural authority of someone who carried the weight of tradition. Jessica, in turn, applied her scientific knowledge to enhance the ancestral techniques. In the yard, Michael and other men unloaded quartz stones and crystals of different sizes and tones. Following the grimoire's guidelines and Jessica's calculations, they began to arrange them in specific geometric patterns, creating a network that would extend to the heart's clearing. "Each crystal needs to be activated by the Guardian," explained Grandma Eleanor. "It's your energy that will give life to the protection system." Jessica felt the weight of responsibility. She was still adapting to her newly awakened powers, still trying to reconcile the skeptical scientist with the mystical Guardian. "What if I can't do it?" Grandma Eleanor held her hands firmly. "You're already doing it, my child. Look around you." Jessica observed the movement in the yard, people of different ages and backgrounds, united by a common purpose. Some brought traditional knowledge, others practical skills, all recognizing the vital importance of what they were protecting. "It's more than a tree, isn't it?" murmured Jessica. "It's a symbol of how we should relate to the earth." Grandma Eleanor nodded, her eyes shining with wisdom. "The heart is the reminder that everything is connected. Each action has consequences, each choice matters. This fight isn't just for our land, it's for the future." A familiar whinny announced Windrunner's arrival. The majestic black horse approached Jessica, inclining his head as if in reverence. Without hesitation, she mounted, feeling strangely comfortable despite never having been a rider. "The time has come," she said, with a confidence she didn't know she possessed. "Let's go to the clearing." The afternoon was falling when the procession reached the clearing. Jessica led the group mounted on Windrunner, followed by Grandma Eleanor, Michael, and about 20 local residents, each carrying crystals, herbs, and other materials necessary for the protection ritual. The heart of the forest rose in the center, majestic despite the wound still visible on its trunk, a reminder of the recent attack. Following the instructions from the grimoire and Jessica's scientific calculations, they began positioning the crystals in a complex geometric pattern, forming an invisible energy network around the clearing. Each crystal was placed with mathematical precision, aligned with the Earth's natural magnetic fields and the energy lines that converged on the heart. "The crystals will function as amplifiers and redistributors of energy," Jessica explained, to those present. "When activated, they'll create a resonance field that will neutralize the electromagnetic pulses from New Era's weapon." Michael and other older community members intoned ancestral chants as they worked, their voices merging, in a harmony that seemed to make the very forest vibrate in response. Jessica, still adapting to her new reality, alternated between directing the technical positioning of the crystals and absorbing the traditional knowledge that flowed around her. As the sun descended on the horizon, tinting the sky with orange, "Hughes!" Grandma Eleanor called everyone to the center of the clearing. "It's time," she announced. "The ritual needs to be completed before nightfall." Jessica positioned herself before the heart, feeling its gentle and constant pulsing. The others formed a circle around, creating a human barrier of protection. Grandma Eleanor handed her granddaughter a small silver dagger with ancient inscriptions on the handle. "A drop of your blood freely offered will seal your pact as guardian." Jessica hesitated only for a second before making a small cut on her palm. A drop of bright red blood fell onto the exposed root of the heart, being immediately absorbed. At that instant, a golden luminescence began to radiate from the center of the tree, spreading like veins of light through the trunk, branches, and leaves. The scientist in Jessica observed, fascinated the transformation, mentally cataloging the phenomenon. The guardian in Jessica, on the other hand, felt each pulse of energy as if it were her own heart beating in synchrony with the ancestral tree. The light expanded beyond the tree, reaching the strategically positioned crystals. One by one, they began to glow with the same golden luminescence, forming visible connection lines between them, until the entire clearing was enveloped in a web of shimmering light. "It's working," murmured Michael, amazed. The shield was almost complete when the sound of engines broke the harmony of the moment. High beams cut through the forest's twilight, and Richard Morgan's amplified voice echoed among the trees. "Impressive demonstration, Dr. Miller, truly impressive." 6 black pickup trucks formed a semicircle at the edge of the clearing. Richard emerged from the first one, accompanied by his usual assistants and what appeared to be a heavily armed private security team. More concerning, however, was the large equipment mounted on the bed of one of the trucks, a much larger and more powerful version of the pulse weapon they had used the previous night. "You really thought we could be stopped by some crystals and folk songs?" Richard smiled, adjusting his shirt cuffs with casual elegance. "New Era has invested millions in cutting-edge technology for this moment." Jessica remained firm before the heart, Windrunner at her side, the animal's eyes fixed on the invaders. "This isn't just a tree or an energy source for you to exploit, Morgan," she declared, her voice surprisingly stable. "It's a vital nexus, a supporting pillar of the natural balance in this region. Extracting its energy would cause irreparable damage to the entire ecosystem." "Progress requires sacrifices, Doctor. Humanity has always advanced this way." "This isn't progress. It's myopic and destructive exploitation." Richard made a dismissive gesture. "Environmentalist philosophy won't pay the bills or solve the global energy crisis. What we have here is a revolutionary solution, and you're in the way." He extended an envelope to Jessica. "A court order declaring this area as public interest for energy research purposes, signed by Judge Charles Martin, an old friend." Grandma Eleanor stepped forward, an indomitable force despite her diminutive stature. "This land has belonged to the Miller family for centuries, with impeccable legal documentation." "Contested documentation, ma'am," Richard countered. "Our lawyers found discrepancies. Furthermore, we have environmental licenses approved for non-invasive scientific research." He emphasized the last words with irony, looking at the pulse, cannon mounted on the truck. "You have 1 hour to gather your belongings and leave the area. After that, you'll be forcibly removed if necessary." A tense silence fell over the clearing. Jessica exchanged glances with Grandma Eleanor, Michael, and the others. No one spoke, but a silent communication flowed between them all. They were willing to resist, to protect the heart at any cost. Richard checked his watch, impatient. "We don't have all night, Dr. Miller. Decide. Leave peacefully or—" His words were interrupted by a growing sound, like the rumble of hundreds of approaching footsteps. From the depths of the forest emerged a procession of lit torches, hundreds of them, carried by residents of Pine Ridge and neighboring communities. Men, women, elderly, and young people advanced toward the clearing, forming an improvised army of forest defenders. At the front of the group, Jessica recognized the mayor of Pine Ridge, accompanied by council members, community leaders, and, surprisingly, news teams with cameras and microphones. What is this? Richard seemed genuinely astonished for the first time. This, Mr. Morgan, is democracy in action, responded the mayor, approaching. Your plans for this area were exposed in an extraordinary session of the town council this afternoon. Your licenses were obtained through bribery and document falsification, and Judge Martin is being investigated for corruption at this very moment. Richard paled, looking around like a cornered animal. Impossible, nobody knew. I knew, Jessica stepped forward, facing him. And while you were planning your invasion, I was analyzing samples from the heart and documenting its unique properties. Michael was live-streaming to federal environmental authorities, while tribal elders activated support networks that have existed for generations. Richard's face contorted in a mixture of anger and disbelief. You have no idea what you're doing. The economic potential, the scientific advancement, you're throwing away the future because of primitive superstitions. No, Morgan, Jessica shook her head. We're protecting the future, and there's nothing primitive about wisdom that respects natural cycles and recognizes that we are part of something greater. A reporter approached with a microphone, cameras pointed at Richard. Mr. Morgan, what do you have to say about the leaked documents showing New Era's plans to build an industrial complex in this environmental preservation area, contradicting the obtained licenses? Other reporters advanced, launching more questions while the camera lights illuminated Richard's increasingly pale face. His security guards seemed uncertain, looking for instructions. This doesn't end here, he hissed, retreating to his truck. You have no idea who you're dealing with. On the contrary, responded Jessica, we know exactly who we're dealing with, and you don't realize what you're up against. As if in response to her words, the network of crystals around the clearing intensified its golden glow, creating a luminous dome over the entire site. The roots of the heart of the forest pulsed with renewed life, extending across the clearing's soil in complex and beautiful patterns. Windrunner whinnied, rising on his hind legs in an almost heroic pose. For an instant, it seemed to all present that a luminous aura enveloped the animal, briefly revealing its true nature as a guardian. Richard backed away even more, almost tripping over his own fear. Withdraw, ordered Grandma Eleanor, her voice carrying the authority of centuries of guardians before her. This place is protected now and forever. The New Era men retreated hastily, trucks departing amid the noise of engines and headlights cutting through the growing darkness. The crowd of local residents erupted in applause and shouts of celebration. In the weeks that followed, the transformation was remarkable. The New Era case became a national scandal, with investigations revealing a corruption network that extended to high levels of government. Richard Morgan was indicted for multiple environmental crimes and document falsification. The lands illegally acquired by the company were confiscated and, through a special decree, incorporated into a new conservation unit, the Heart of the Mountains Natural Park. Jessica found her place finally. Using her scientific training, she established a sustainable research center on the family property, dedicated to the study and preservation of local biodiversity. Researchers from across the country came to learn about the innovative methodologies she was developing, combining cutting-edge science with traditional wisdom. The heart of the forest continued to pulse, protected not only by crystals and ancestral rituals, but by an engaged community and a new guardian who had found the balance between two seemingly opposite worlds. On full moon nights, the oldest residents swore they saw a figure mounted on a majestic black horse patrolling the forest boundaries. Jessica Miller, the guardian of the Heart of the Mountains, finally complete in her mission, finally home. Grandma Eleanor, watching her granddaughter flourish in her role, smiled with the satisfaction of someone who had completed her own journey. The cycle continued, wisdom passed forward, and the connection between humanity and nature found new ways to manifest, adapting to the times, but maintaining its eternal essence. The heart beats for all of us, Jessica would tell the young students who visited the research center. And in each beat it reminds us that we are part of a web of life, much larger than ourselves. And in the depths of the forest, The heart of the forest pulsed, nourished and protected, as it had done for millennia, and as it would continue to do for many more, now under the watchful eye of its new guardian,